Welcome back again to Connect and Transform. It's only been a few minutes since the last video, but I've already coded the generic solution that works on every graph type, and it was far less work. So let me briefly show the differences in the files. So on the left-hand side, I have the old original file before any of today's videos. So before the correct or the incorrect solution for reordering stacked bar or stacked anything series. And on the right-hand side, I have the current file. So it's exactly identical, identical, identical. We're scrolling down. Okay, so there's a difference here, and I'll talk about that in a second. Identical, slight difference, another difference here, and then it's identical all the way down. So we can see there's really not that much code that's different. So I'll start from the top. So this first block of green added code on the right-hand side, this is basically saying if we've already drawn a graph, we want to check and see if it's already there, and if it is, we want to remove it. So this is inside the init series labels function. So we're checking to see if there's already an element with an ID series label container, and if so, we remove it, and then checking to see if there's a top mask container, and if so, we remove it. And then here I had to set the ID of this element to be top mask because previously there was no need for an ID attribute, so we were not setting one. The orange line is identical to what it was, but without the constant keyword, the const keyword in front of it, because I chose to use this series labels container name for this variable up here, notated with let. And so that's the only difference there, is the removal of the const keyword, setting an ID, and removing elements that have already been generated so that we can call init series labels and init graph over and over without creating many instances of the graph. We just want one instance of the graph. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Down here in the init data function, very similar, we're checking to see if a data container element exists, and if it does, we remove it so that we only have one instance of a rendered graph at a time. So that leaves us with this code here. So we can see the light blue was already pre-existing. We've only added, sorry, the light green. The dark green is the code that we've added. So we've added an if-else. So we're saying if it is not stacked, then we're going to do what we were doing before. Otherwise, else, if it is stacked, we're going to do this stuff. So what are we doing? Well, we're getting the index of the series that we clicked on, and then we're going to grab the actual series JSON data out of our array and just kind of store that in a constant for later use. And then we're using array.splice to pull the one that we clicked on out of the array. And then we're using array.splice again to reinsert the element that we clicked on into the array at position 0 at the start of that array. So basically, we're just reordering the array, and then we're calling init data and init series labels again, and then we've already done the appropriate changes to those functions to check and see if we've already got a graph, and to remove it if we do. So let's go see that it works. So first, let's just look and make sure that the non-stacked area version continues to work. So if I click on that, it correctly shifts the one that I clicked on forefront in the z-axis. So that's working. Okay, so now with the stacked area variety at the top of the screen, if I click on it, it's going to shift it downward, and it's also shifting the, it's rewriting the series legend. So it's going to shift the one that I click on all the way to the left. So if I click on DDD, it's moved DDD to the left, BBB, same thing, it moves it to the left, and then also inside the data itself, it's moving. You'll notice that the tooltips are also correct. So nothing needed to change there. Scrolling down more, so the non-stacked bar variety continues to work, where it's shifting the series that I click on forefront to the forefront of the z-axis. And then for the stacked bar variety, that is also working, where it's pushing the one that I click on all the way downward, and it's reordering the series legend, and the mask that prevents the data and the legend from overlapping and being unreadable is correctly rendering at the correct z-axis position in between the two. And the tooltips, just kind of scanning them, they appear to be roughly correct. Continuing downward. Now this one will be interesting because it has colored regions. So if I click here, let's see, I'm going to focus right here where my cursor is, where the blue and the purple is overlapping. So right now the blue is forefront in the z-axis. So I'm going to click on the purple, and now I see the purple is forefront. I click on the blue again, and the blue is now forefront. So that is working. And let's see. So needs improvement. Let me think about how I would test this. Oh, right, this one is not the stacked variety. Okay, so I would have to add colored regions to the stacked line chart to see if that automatically picks up or not. So I'll have to investigate that later. That's kind of a different video. But stacked line, we can see that it's working exactly the same. So it's functioning. Looks like the tooltips are aligning. So at least as far as we've ordered the data, I guess for completeness sake, again, I'm going to look right here where the blue and the purple overlap. So when I click on the purple is now forefront. And when I click on the blue is forefront again. So that one is also working. So there might be some additional testing I need to do, particularly around colored regions on stacked renderings, and just to make sure that those tooltips don't need to be re-rendered, or if they do, that they are actually re-rendering as part of the init data function. And actually they might render as part of the init data function, I can't remember, but I will investigate that, and I will make a video if there is further work required. But I think that the tooltips will just automatically generate and that everything will work the way that it should. So real quick, just to recap, I'm basically just checking to see if we've already created a graph, and if we have, we're getting rid of that data so that we only have one instance. And then the only other thing we're doing is reordering the graph-data.series JSON array, and then calling init data and init series labels again, and everything just happens to work exactly how we want. So that was pretty neat. Thank you for watching.